And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We continue our focus on young people tonight. More LGBTQ youth are coming out as non-binary. In fact, the Trevor Project, one of the leading suicide prevention organizations for LGBTQ youth, says 1 in 4 identify as non-binary. Our panel explains what that means and why acceptance is key to saving lives.
And joining us now here on The Factor Uncensored is Austin Ruiz and Mike Webb. Glad to have you both here on The Factor Uncensored. We have more and more young people out there identifying themselves as non-binary. So let's get the basics first, Mike. What would be non-binary for those who are not in the know?
Yeah, so non-binary are people who don't identify with either gender, that meaning don't identify as male or female. Therefore, their gender identity is up for their own self-definition.
So when we take a look at non-binary individuals, what would be the pronouns, for example, they would use?
The best way to figure that out is to simply ask. I tend to approach everyone in a gender-neutral manner. And when I want to refer to someone by their accurate pronouns, I say, hey, what are your pronouns? According to the Trevor Project, a good chunk of non-binary people identify as they, them. However, there's plenty of non-binary people who still stick to he and or she pronouns. And the most important thing here in this example is to simply ask and respect people's gender pronouns.
Now, Austin, why is this important?
Well, it's important because going back to the Trevor Project that Mike just cited, they show that non-binary youth that have people that address them by the correct pronouns, that see them as non-binary, those youth feel more supported. They feel more at ease. They're less likely to have suicidal ideations or even suicidal attempts. They're less likely to have, mental health issues. It's important that we see non-binary youth and all non-binary people as just that, non-binary, and that we're not trying to force them to fit into, the gender binary that we traditionally see most people fit into, just to make sure that they're supported and really to make sure that we're not causing them any kind of increased mental harm.
And to use a word that Austin just used, Mike, when the general public says, why are we forced to remember all of this and to do this non-binary definition and figure things out, and we have to ask the questions instead of just by talking to you and identifying with you. When the public says it's too much, what would you say to that, Mike?
I think it's important to remember that, like almost every public health crisis, right, transphobia and LGBTQ discrimination has disproportionate effects on certain people, and including Black and brown youth. For example, only 12% of white youth attempted suicide from this study, compared to 21% of Black youth, meaning our Black and LGBTQ youth are almost twice as likely to attempt to kill ourselves compared to our white counterparts. Because
why is that, Mike? Why is that?
It's because of this lack of acceptance of who we are. And so when we're talking about people who say this is too much, for example, I'm thinking about growing up right here in Houston, Texas, in 3rd Ward, right across the street from St. Mary's Catholic School, where the community did not have the words. They didn't have the knowledge at the time on how to best be accepting of queer youth. And so there's bullying involved. There's ignorance involved. And that impacts, like Austin said earlier, our mental health. As someone who's very openly dealing with depression every day and have to constantly reaffirm and make myself stronger just to be an advocate for our communities, I can personally testify to the detriment that people not trying their best to be accepting, inclusive, and loving can have on individuals.
The Trevor Project offers free help 24/7. The number to call is 866-488-7386.